Hey, and welcome to video number 4. I'm going to show you how to create catchy text as well as creating that cool mirroring effect with your text. So I'm going to split this video up into 3 different steps. Step number 1, I'm going to show you how to create text. And then step number 2, I'm going to show you how to turn that text into a gradient. Gradient meaning if you look at, let's say, a text, it looks like this. Imagine this was one color, if it was blue. And you know how you have lighter shades of blue and darker shades of blue, kind of like that shiny looking effect. So I'm going to show you how to do that in step number 2. And then step number 3, I'm going to show you how to do the mirroring effect, kind of like what we talked about earlier. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But it's a step-by-step process so that you can learn, fairly easy from step number 1 to step number 3, and it'll be very easy for you to implement once you understand that. Step number 1 is, of course, to create a text. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. All you have to do is click on the text here, and then choose the color that you want to make. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it at, let's say, dark blue. And then I'm going to click somewhere, it doesn't matter where you click it, and then I'm just going to enter the text. Now if you want to change the font, you can do so by clicking here, and as you can see, the beauty of Paint.net is it shows you what the font looks like. So you can pick and choose whatever font you want it to look like. So if I wanted to change from cursive to, let's say, this one here, I can do that. And then if you want to change the size, you just change the size here. And I'll just keep it at 192. If you want to bold it, you can. If you want to italicize it, underline it, put a strike through it, you can do that. If you want to move the text around, you will see this square box here with the arrows. Simply click on that and just move it around wherever you want it to be moved around. Alright. Now the second step is, of course, I'm going to show you how to create a gradient in terms of the text itself. Now I know I talked about that I'm going to use layers in the future videos, and I'm going to dive deeper into that later on, but I want to show you something cool. In order to create, mirroring effects and so forth and gradients, you're going to need to use layers. So to keep it simple, however, I'm just going to use one layer, and that's it. So I'm going to start from scratch. Whenever you create a gradient or anything like that, then mirroring effects, you're going to need to create one layer. So all you have to do is click layer and click add new layer, and Paint.net is automatically going to give you a layer with no background, and that's what we want. So I'm going to uncheck this. All that means is that it makes it disappear just for the moment, and I'm going to click on the same text, click text, and add the text that I want to. And the next thing I'm going to do is use this magic wand tool. What this magic wand tool does is it allows you to select an area. So because we're dealing with text and we're not dealing with anything complicated, you don't have to worry about anything up here. So simply click on that and then hold the shift key. So you want to hold the shift key down and select that. And as we can see, it was selected all the way from here, here, and here. And normally you would hold the shift key and select these just inside the blue area, or whatever color that you choose. Once that's done, you simply click on the gradient option here. There are different types of gradients. There are linear reflected, diamond, and as you can see, you can get an idea of what it is. So I'm just going to choose linear, And what that means is now that we have this text selected, all you have to do is click anywhere you want. And as you can see, you're creating a gradient here. And if I hold the mouse and I put it down, as you can see here, you're creating a gradient more on a horizontal level. Now I can choose the color that I want to red if I want to, or pink or whatever. As long as you're using the color wheel here, that's fine. So that's how to create a gradient. And using this knowledge, you're going to be able to create the mirror effect. And I'm going to start from scratch. And the last step is to show you how to create the mirror effect. So I've started with a clean slate here. And I'm going to remove the background here. And you can use the background later if you want to. And I'll actually show you how to do that. In this case, you're creating two different layers. Imagine you're looking at a mirror and you see yourself. And if you're looking from a outside view, you see yourself in the mirror and you see yourself standing there. In this case, there are two different layers. It's just a duplicate layer of the first layer. So just keep that in mind. Using the information that I showed you earlier, you want to create a new layer, and then we'll just uncheck this. And actually, I'll leave that here just so you can see, what happens and so forth. So, of course, step number one, click on the text tool, and then choose a color that you want. Now, the background, let's see here. I'm going to probably change the background color to something darker just so you can see the mirror effect. So let's say that I'm going to choose dark blue. And then I want to change the color of the background. So as long as the background is checked, and you click on it, then I'm editing the background. Now I want to fill this up, so I want to use the paint bucket tool and simply change the color, and that's it. Now I want to deal with the first layer, or the text layer. So I want to click on the text tool and make sure this is checked. And since it's dark blue, I want something lighter, let's say for example white. So I'm going to choose white here. Oops. And you can change the colors of the color wheel here. If you click on here, it'll change the color of that. If you click on here, it'll change the color of that. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm going to move this to the side so that you can see this area here. Click on text, click here, and then add the text. And then, of course, move that to the location. Now, because we're dealing with a mirror effect, I'm going to make this a little smaller because there are going to be two layers involved. So I'm going to move this to the very top, and then that's all we've done. Now, remember how I talked about the mirror is like a second layer, but it's basically like a duplicate layer. So as long as this is checked, all you have to do is go to layers and click on duplicate layer. Duplicate layer. And then as we can see, if we click on the move tool here, you see that we've created two text. Alright. Now I want to flip that because it's a mirror effect, right? So to do that, all I have to do is make sure that I have that text selected. And anytime you move a layer, I'm not going to be able to move this layer unless I choose that layer, as you can see here. But I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to flip that layer. So you can either flip it horizontally or flip it vertically. We want to flip it vertically so it looks like this. Aha! So you're kind of getting an idea here. So you can use the arrows on the keypad to do this. Alright, so you've created a mirror effect. What now? Using the information that I showed you in step number 2 to create a gradient, you're basically going to turn this second layer into a gradient. To do that, like I showed you earlier, basically pick a color, any color that you want. I guess in this case we'll just pick, we'll stick with the dark blue. And then once you've picked a color, and if you're not familiar with what I just did, I basically clicked on the color picker to figure out what color was on the background. And then I'm going to click on the gradient tool. Oh, of course I've missed a step. Of course I need to select that layer. So make sure you select the right layer first. Once you select that layer, use the magic wand tool. And then hold the shift key, just as we did in step number 2. And then after that is selected and you see the outline selected, now it's time to use the gradient tool. Simply click, and then what I would do is just either push up. See, if you push down or you hold the mouse down, then it's not going to be like that mirror effect closest to the center. So let's say do that. And then you'll see this little circle thing. If I make this circle thing, as you can see, it gets darker. So just play around with that a little bit. And I'm almost done. The next thing I want to do is probably cut this in half. So what I mean by that is, okay, you're looking at this and you see the mirror effect here, but you really don't care about this stuff here. So what you can do is just highlight that and then delete it. Hit delete. And you can play around with it if you want to, change the gradient a little bit. Oops. Yeah, so don't forget to click the magic wand tool to select that layer. And that's it. That's how to create a mirror effect. You can play around with it a little bit more with the gradient tool to make it a little look better and so forth. Hey, and welcome to video number 5. We're going to talk about how to create catchy shapes that you can add to your designs. Creating shapes is very easy to do, and I do want to make a mention here that if you ever want to, refer to the layers video or refer to the plugins video in the future, this video series isn't really cumulative, so meaning that you can skip around if you want to. But keep in mind that when it comes to the banners and the headers, that's when it's actually cumulative. So we actually take everything that we've learned in the video product and use it for the banners and the header section. So I just want to make that clear before we move on, that you can move forward as well if you want to. Now we're going to create shapes in this specific video. So the best thing that you can do is either you can create squares, you can create all these other all these other things, but if you want to create like really cool shapes and effects, then you want to go under the effects section and then click on render. and you'll see a bunch of shapes that you can create and this and that. Now, when you start out with Paint.net, you don't receive all of these. You might receive only a few, and that's fine. You can just use whatever you have. Or if you want a lot more, you can refer to the plugins section, plugins video section, which is video later on. And I basically show you where to get these effects, where to get these plugins, and essentially what plugins are they are effects. So you can find shapes and effects and so forth, and all you do is find them, download them, add them to Paint.net, and it's very, very easy to do. But if you want to get more, I want to make a note and tell you that just refer to the plugin section if you want to do that. Now, if you click on render, by default you're going to have shapes, and all you have to do is simply click on one of these, whatever you might have, because some of you might have something different, and you just click on shapes, and then in this case I can choose a shape. So what I like about Paint.net is you can see what's happening in the preview section over here. So as you are creating shapes, you can see what's happening here. So I can click on square, I can click on circle, I can click on triangle, diamond, star. As you can see, we got many different types of cool looking shapes. So as you can see, they're not just circles and so forth. There's spiders and bats and butterflies and snowflake. Like for example, right now is winter time, so I could create something like this. I could change the line style so that either it's solid, it's a dash, it's dots, and so forth. You can make it flat. You can rotate it. Do really cool, neat, cool stuff with this. So simply by using the effects, under render, and then you'll find a bunch of shapes that you can use. Now if you don't really care about getting all fancy, however, you can stick with the regular shapes. And with the regular shapes, you've got square rectangles, you got rounded rectangles, ellipses, and you have freeform shapes. So freeform shapes would give the ability to kind of create your own shapes, but it would kind of require you to, it's kind of like the pencil or the paintbrush, but as you saw earlier, eventually it connects to each other. So if I want to make a vase, I could do that, but obviously it doesn't look like a vase at all. So I would say stick with, if you're not familiar with that, just stick with these shapes here. And if you want to get fancy, say we'll make a square. You put a square with text in it. You can actually apply effects to the specific shape as well, just by going under effects and then applying certain things to that shape. So you can do things like that. And the whole idea here is you can create shapes, but to make that shape fancy or anything, click under effects, go to render or distort, anything you want. And like I said earlier, if you want extra effects or extra shapes, just refer to the plugin section, and that'll show you how to get shapes, how to get effects, and so forth. But it'll show you how to get effects, but you can apply that to getting shapes as well. So as you can see, it's a very, very easy thing to do. You can create this. You can change the stuff inside the shape. So just now what I did was I took the paint bucket, filled this in. You can change the fill, and what fill means is whatever it fills up in. So you can change that. Fill that in, and it's checkerboard and this and that. So, and like I said earlier, it really depends on what you're creating. If you're creating something professional, you would probably want to keep with something conservative. If you're creating something wacky for a wacky audience, or not necessarily a wacky audience, but something that's more artistic, then you can fill in stuff like this. But just keep in mind your audience and who you're dealing with whenever you're creating graphics, so that you can create something that is eye friendly to that specific audience.